So welcome everybody. This is Science Bridge webinar series, You Can Do It. And my guest today is Dr. Peter Durcan. Dr. Durcan received his master's degree in Molecular Exercise Physiology at University of Aberdeen, Scotland. After that, he was awarded his PhD in the cellular and molecular biology at the University of Manchester at the Manchester Metropolitan University. He further moved to South Africa to continue his research at Stellenbosch University as a postdoctoral fellow. Currently, Dr. Durcan is the Chief Scientific Officer at Afribodies, the company located in Cape Town. So, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here.
No, I think it's a great story that you're going to have for our viewers to tell about you and how did you end up all the way from Scotland in South Africa. So I think it's great that you agreed to share it with us.
Yeah, sure. I kind of had a lot of travel during my, academic career. If we start kind of back at the beginning, so I was born in Ireland and grew up there. So I did my undergraduate, my BSc degree there in Ireland, and then I moved over to Scotland to do my master's degree, as you said. And then I went to Manchester. So I've been like three different universities during my education and career. And then at the end of my PhD, I was looking to move to a country basically that had more sunny days than rainy days. And an opportunity came up at Stellenbosch University that would allow me to continue on some of the research work I was doing during my PhD. And so it was a good opportunity for me to broaden my horizons and continue on the research work that I was interested in. So most of my research career revolved around looking at skeletal muscle tissue, how it repairs itself from injury, and also doing some work looking at how genetic defects in muscle could be corrected for muscle diseases such as muscular dystrophy or motor neuron disease, and these kind of rather horrific diseases, unfortunately. So that's kind of my background in brief of how I came to South Africa.
No, absolutely, that's interesting. So what actually attracted you to working on such horrific diseases?
Yeah, so when I was starting out, kind of before I went to university, or even during my time in university, I was always like, well, first of all, fascinated by how the human body works and how it adapts, and what happens in disease, what happens in healthy states. And I was often like toying up with the option of like, oh, maybe I should go to like medical school and become like a clinician and go that route. But then during my research work, I saw that there was a lot of like diseases that were currently incurable. And like, I was like, I wouldn't be able to work in a clinic and tell the patient, look, there's nothing we can do for you really, like, you know, apart from maybe like provide some like palliative care. That I was like, if I was that patient that was getting that news, I would be incredibly disappointed, frustrated, annoyed. So I was like, look, this is what I actually want to do. I want to try to make a difference to help the people who have currently incurable diseases. So I always use the expression to people. I say, there before the grace of God go I. Like, so it's, you know, people's situations can change quickly, and like these diseases are just dreaded diseases, and the muscle diseases in particular, they often affect very young children, and so it's absolutely heartbreaking to see how these diseases basically put a child in a wheelchair by the time they're like 7 years of age. So I was like, yeah, this is something to motivate me and to direct my my focus on. So yeah, that's the underpinning of my science research and my motivation for doing research. And it's also actually still a large part of the motivation for, as we'll talk about later, about setting up of aqua bodies as well. So yeah.
No, that sounds quite relatable. I personally also was considering being a doctor or being a researcher for similar reasons. I just didn't want to work with patients, so uh, so that was more my push towards science. But that's absolutely interesting. And so you say that you could continue the same similar research at Stellenbosch universities. So the science basically is on a similar level at both Manchester University and Stellenbosch University, you say?
Yep. So, I've been fortunate as regards I've been able to work at a few different locations, say, throughout the world. And yeah, definitely my experience has been that at many, I'd say I suppose that you would call them as the top or the leading ranked universities in South Africa, such as like Stellenbosch and University of Cape Town and it's Witwatersrand and that. The research work that goes on there is of a very good standard and is comparable to what goes on elsewhere in the world. So yeah, the research group that I was working with at Stellenbosch University, so I was under a professor there called Kathy Myberg, and so she's established a very good research group and is very keen on international links and making sure that she's conducting research that's like at a global relevance and a global standard. So yeah, so I had access to basically most of the things that I would have needed or required, and that I could access at Stellenbosch. So it was great. Yeah.
No, that's very important because some people are afraid that South African science might not be on the international level, but it's not true. And we have great universities like Stellenbosch or UCT, and they really push the science forward and are on the international level.
Exactly.
So,
The one thing I always say to people in relation to South Africa and the world is that, like, you know, if you go to, say, the USA, you probably maybe have 1,000 experts on a certain thing. In South Africa, you maybe have one or two experts on that certain thing. So it's just the quality is here in South Africa. You just have to find out the relevant experts in the country. So compared to in the USA, where there's like so that's the only real major difference that I've found between the different places that I've worked.
no, absolutely, absolutely. So, moving on from Stellenbosch University and being a postdoctoral fellow, what happened there that you decided to start your own company, basically?
Yeah, so good question. So I suppose there's maybe like a few reasons. One of the reasons was I really wanted to like make a difference, and I'm still trying to work towards making a difference. As I said, to really try to help these people who have these incurable diseases. That's still my number one focus in everything I do. So in combination with the research work I was doing at Stellenbosch and in combination with setting up a potential business, I wanted to link the two of them together. So I saw like a commercial opportunity globally, not just in South Africa, to provide a specific type of antibody, things that are called nanobodies. So these are like antibodies that are produced by camelid species such as alpacas, llamas, and camels, and they have like some very good properties that we believe as a company make them exciting targets for therapeutics and for diagnostics of diseases, and also they're very useful for research reagents as well for researchers. So I set up a company because in academia things move very slow. You have to keep applying for like research grants, and the research grants are quite limited in that. But in the private sector, if you can, you have the potential to raise significant amount of money quite quickly. That allows you to do a lot of work that you couldn't do in academia. And so that was one of the main driving reasons for me to go into the private sector from academic research, was to see if potentially I could fast track what I wanted to get done by setting up a business myself, rather than staying in academia and having to continuously apply for grants and after grant, and then having most grants rejected. So Although in business, I must say as well, it's also a similar story. You pitch your funding idea, and 9 times out of 10 people will say no, we're not going to give you money for that. So it's a tough life being a scientist and trying to get things done.
But you're saying, so you were a postdoctoral fellow, right? And then you say you decided to start a company. How did that happen? Because it sounds like quite a jump. Like, what were the sticky points? Where did you get the knowledge from?
Yeah, so it was quite a big undertaking and a big challenge for sure. So how it's not something as well that happened overnight. So the setting up the company was basically about 2 years of planning and putting a team together of people and trying to source resources and logistics and stuff like that. So as I was kind of doing my postdoc, I was also trying to write up the plan for the business and develop that and to do my research. So I was kind of doing the two things side by side. Setting it up in South Africa, one of the biggest impacts on it was this. I met my now current wife during this time as I was trying to set up the business, and she decided that she would help me to co-found the business. And so that was a major benefit because having a South African person on board allowed us to register the company here, and it opened up opportunities that wouldn't have been available to me as say a foreign person in South Africa, or it would have been a lot more complicated. So yeah, it was and then of course the next step was sourcing the funding to get the company up and running.
Yes, and as you say, it's similar to what you do in academia, so writing grants and getting rejections.
Yep. So I always tell people the training in academia is excellent for business, for the business world. There's lots of there's lots of similarities. There's a few little differences, but many similarities. So yeah, so the training in academia, especially at that the rejection in academia, like, you know, you submit your research paper and people say, oh no, this isn't good, or like you should have done this. So, you know, in academia, you learn though how to deal with it. You separate it and you say it's not a personal say criticism of you. It's just on the professional kind of front. So I think as you move through the academic say trajectory, especially when you get to a postdoc, you do learn the importance of separating the personal from the professional kind of like criticism. So yeah, and that's been vitally important for me in Afro-Bodies to help keep me motivated and to deal with the rejections that are always present. So
and building the resilience, I guess, in day to day.
Yeah, academia and business is all about resilience. If you don't have resilience, yeah, I wouldn't advise you going to a scientific career or go into the biotech or try to set up your own biotech company. Maybe working for a biotech company is different when you don't have to source the money and look after all the logistics and that. So, but of course, there's benefits as well when you set up a company yourself. You can help to determine what way the company is going to go, and you have like other benefits. So each day is a different experience with different opportunities and different challenges.
So how does it happen? You have the idea, and then let's say in your case, the nanobodies, and then how you go about actually setting up the research lab for your company and making the name.
Yeah. So definitely the first thing that's required is a lot of planning. Like the devil is in the detail. So, you know, you have to really work out how is it going to operate. You literally have to walk through the process, like what do you need to make a product. So of course, initially it all starts off with this big idea of like, we're going to make this product for this purpose. But then how you're actually going to make the product, and importantly, who's going to buy it and how you're going to get it to them are the other big questions. So what is required for sure is a detailed plan at the start, because I will also tell you how much money you need to raise. Because quite simply in South Africa and in actually all over the world, if you can't raise money, you're not going anywhere in business. That's a very harsh reality that I learned very quickly as part of as part of setting up and running this business. So yeah, so do your plan, uh, identify your customers, how you're going to get to them, and then also you simply then have to start going out to people who might invest in your business, either the public or private sector, and show that they'll ask for your plan, they'll want to talk to you about your ideas, how you're going to make money basically, and what are the returns and that going to be for them. So yeah, it's there's lots of steps and processes to it.
So it's a lot of self-learning, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I have definitely learned a lot from this whole experience. Maybe one of the biggest lessons is accepting that things go wrong. Unexpected things happen, but you literally you have to you accept it. Obviously, try to learn from it, but you have to keep moving forward. If you keep looking back and regretting things, you never bring the business forward, because it's all about the next day, the next customer, the next sale, the next plan. That's kind of the approach that you have to adapt.
So your main background is in cellular biology and not really business or MBA.
Yeah.
So how does that background help you with establishing your business?
Yeah. So as I say, I was very fortunate in that my now wife, she has more of a business background. She's actually finishing her MBA at UCT at the moment. So she would have brought in a lot of the business side of things, advice. A large part of it was I would have these great scientific ideas about what I would like to do, and then we'd run through the numbers with her, and she's like, "Well, that's not practical." So we'd often have to scale back my ambitions. So while I wanted to help and cure every disease in the world, I soon realized, well, okay, we have to start a bit smaller than that. Maybe let's identify one little thing first of all. So yeah, so I guess that goes back to kind of one of the earlier points, that setting up a business, it's virtually impossible, really, I would say, to do it by yourself. You definitely need a team of people. So also in our team of Afro Bodies, we have other people from different backgrounds in business and marketing and they are also very good at providing input and, like, say, constructive criticism to maybe some of my crazy ideas or my ambitions. So it's important to get that balance. Like you need to have the ambition, but you need to have a practicality as well of how to get to that ultimate ambition as well. So if you're looking to set up a business, get a good team of people together. It's probably it's very critical with hopefully diverse backgrounds, as regards experience and that, because then together it forms a nice coherent unit.
And how do you collect those people? How do you find them?
Yeah, it's all about networking, knocking on doors, talking. As it was probably the biggest challenge, I must admit, that I faced, because in science, you're oftentimes, especially in academia, you're more like kind of like in a silo, and like you have interaction, okay, with your supervisor, with your current lab mates, but you're not really interacting with a very big variety of people who have different interests and different backgrounds. So obviously the people in your lab and your immediate network in most of your research career, you have similar types of interests and similar passions in that. When you go into the business world, many people have many different interests in that. So as say like a co-founder of the business, I had to, like, I suppose, go out of my shell and start conversing with these people in their, almost like in their language per se. So they didn't really care about the science so much. They wanted to understand the markets, what determines why a person would buy this product, how are we going to be able to produce X amount of products for X amount of cash, what's the returns in that going to be. So yeah, so moving from science into business, changing the types of conversation one has, and being more people oriented, people focused. Yeah, in business, I'm realizing it's a lot of people interaction and personal engagement to make a massive difference in business. Like and how you treat people, and making sure everyone's treated with respect, and honesty is also vitally important as well. That you don't lie to people and say, oh yeah, you're going to get 10 million rand in the next year if you give me 2 million rand. These type of things don't work. So yeah.
Be more down to earth, I guess, and
Yeah,
important to learn to that you have to work by yourself, especially on a PhD, and then you have to suddenly open up and realize that it's about a team.
absolutely. And delegating as well. Delegation is also an important part of the process, is trying to give people to delegate different tasks to people, so that then one person doesn't kind of become say a bottleneck in the companies. Because even for Afro bodies at the moment, a lot of the tasks I oversee, so I'm also still trying to work on this delegation task and trying to set up the company so that other people can take on different responsibilities, rather than say me doing a lot of the tasks per se.
So I wanted to ask you about the recent developments, because Afrobodies was mentioned a lot recently in regards to work with WHO and Biovac Institute. So how that happened, how you go from starting your own business to suddenly working with quite big institutes during global pandemics.
Yeah. So, well, I should clarify. So, the WHO and the Biovac, we're not in that consortium, but what we have been doing is working on the COVID work. So our COVID work, though, has been self-funded actually by Afrobodies. So what we've been working on is developing what they're called neutralizing antibodies against the virus. So we want to use these nanobodies as a treatment for people who test positive for COVID. So the rationale behind it is, or the treatment that we're working on, is that the person will inhale our nanobodies into their lungs, and this will neutralize the virus. So it will do two things. It will stop disease progression, so it will avoid lung damage to the patients, and two, it will help to reduce transmission. So right now, though, we've done the initial kind of proof of concept work in the lab, showing that our nanobodies stop the virus from infecting cells, and now we're moving on to the next phase, where we will need to do some animal trials, and hopefully then move on to the human trials. But for that, we need to raise a significant amount of cash. So that's my current biggest project that I'm working on.
Yeah, so suddenly you're going from working in the lab on a proof of concept to raising cash for quite a big project.
Yeah, it's for something like this, it's a very big project. So it's a bigger project than, say, Afrobodies at the moment would run. So what we've decided to do is that we've licensed out the rights into a new company, and this new company now will take over the clinical development of the nanobodies. So we call the new company COVID Impilo, and Impilo is a Zulu word that means help. So yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Kind of in academic research and in business, one never knows how things will unfold. It's a risk, and yeah, we just got to knock on doors and see. Hopefully some people will decide to fund this, and we can progress it on further. So that's the goal.
Absolutely. But it sounds fascinating because, as you said, in academia, it goes slower. And here you just say, we decide to make a bigger company and we just need to collect some money, but we are working with WHO. It sounds quite abstract.
Yeah, so I must admit, for the COVID work, it has really fast tracked our, say, entry into the immunotherapeutic field. So Afrobodies as a company, we focus on, say, three main sectors. One is the life science research sector, so that's providing reagents to scientists at universities. The second one is called immunodiagnostics, that's to detect diseases. And then the third one, which was always a longer term goal, is immunotherapy, which is basically the use of antibodies or nanobodies for treatment of diseases. So, but always the immunotherapy market is always, it has a much higher barrier of entry because of the costs involved to run the trials and everything like that. So, but when COVID came around, we thought, I had known that nanobodies were very good at neutralizing viruses such as the HIV virus, for example. So it was a bit of a gamble. It was very much of a gamble, I have to admit, that we decided, let's try to make some nanobodies against COVID and see how it works. So fortunately, we were able to isolate out some very, say, potent nanobodies that are now showing, but we definitely believe, great commercial potential and great potential to solve this crisis, that we can hopefully all get back to normal and not need to wear masks, and we can go to sports stadiums and music concerts and that. So because this lockdown is very frustrating for me as well. So I just want it all to be over. So,
I
yeah.
absolutely understand. I think it's having a big toll on all of us in different ways, and depending where we are in life, it has just different impact, but it is strenuous, definitely.
Mhm.
So we have high hopes for Afrobodies and your work, so, no pressure there.
Yeah. Well, I'd say let's see how everything unfolds. Of course we're optimistic, but also realistic as well. That like you never know what life has in store for you, and so yeah, you
So,
you hope for the best.
no, we all do, fingers crossed for that. But the last question that I would like to ask you, because you sound like quite, having big ambitions, being a dreamer. So what would be your advice for the young students who are afraid of graduation, afraid of going out there and being like, okay, now I have my diploma, I need to find the job and what I can do?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I would say that having fear is perfectly normal. I think everyone has fear and anxiety, and that, so that is normal. Don't worry about that. The other part of advice I would give them is, in life, with everything, you're going to have lots of people that say that you're wrong, or you're going to have rejection, or that. In the work environment, uh, don't take the rejections as a personal reflection upon yourself. It's just, sometimes, say for example, if you apply for a job, sometimes it just, either the interview or the company might just decide on some other person at that particular time. So all you can do is really like put yourself out there and give it your best shot. Is kind of like my advice. And the rejection, just don't take it personally. It sucks and it's frustrating. Just dust yourself down and move on to the next one. So that's always my advice. I mean, even for us as a company, it's always so hard trying to like. If we're employing people, or like taking on a candidate, it's like, oh, like I just don't know who to choose. So it's even on the employer side, it's a tough job as well, because like it's so difficult to choose between people, because everyone has different positive attributes to them, and sometimes we also make the wrong decisions or make the right decisions with the employment and that. So it's a two-way street. So, but yeah, just give it your best and see how it goes. Is my general advice.
Okay, well then that's a very important advice. Don't take things personally in the work environment because they are not personal. They are just decisions, and it sometimes can be wrong or bad or good decision, but it's never personal.
Exactly. Everyone has an opinion, so that's you know you can't often change people's opinions. Sometimes their opinion might be right, sometimes it might be wrong, but
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your experience that you decided to share with us. I'm sure that it's a very important experience that a lot of people can learn from, and can learn also that we are grown to have a lot of resilience in the lab. So we have to just use it when we go out there. So thank you so much for that.
it's great. It's just nice chatting, and yeah, all the best with everything.
Thank you.
Great.